So I guess to start, if you would like to give an overview of your background in Holston Gases, and because you guys have a different structure, right? So yeah.
Well, I don't know what you mean by different structure. We're privately owned, all the stock's in the family. Dad started in 1958. I joined the company in 1981. And my dad had put all the stock in my name and my sister's name early on when they were like 2 years into the deal. He just went ahead and did it when it wasn't worth anything, and made took a little bit of a risk, but just decided I'm going to go ahead and get that done now and trust that they turn out all right. And so that was already done. And then after my dad died early, I ended up running the company. Jenny had never worked here, but she was about the perfect silent partner. And so we went along for, 87 for about 5 years. And then I was able to buy her out. Her family was growing. She was in the real estate business, never worked here, and was ready to do that. And I was ready to take the same risk and see what I could do for my kids. Bought her out in I take that back. It was 10 years. 97 is when I bought her out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I guess by structure, I just meant how you have Robert Anders in as he's president, correct?
Correct. Yeah. He's a non-family member, a non-owner who runs the company, if that's what you mean.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so since we're talking about that, do you mind touching on the decisions to bring Robert Anders in and how that kind of looked?
In 1990, I had an opportunity to buy MG's retail location in the South. And I knew that if I did that, I was going to need more management expertise. Robert was running the BOC store here in Knoxville at the time, and we had met and had lunch together, and I really liked him. And he was a very responsible competitor, et cetera. But when I had that opportunity, I called him up and asked him out to lunch again and just said, I don't have any reason to believe you're not happy, but I've got an opportunity and I'm going to be hiring somebody. If you have any interest, let me know. And he did, and they talked. And long story short, he came on board and started in 1990 with me.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Another question I have is, and I don't know if there's an answer for it, but I was trying to talk to Wally about this too, how they were able to find Gary Halter, but was that just off of gut then, who you chose to put in such a big role?
Like I say, I'd met him, and then I had a year or two of experience with him as a really responsible, good competitor, and I just thought a lot of him. And so we talked again, and then obviously we had several conversations before he decided to come on board. But at that time, I hired him as vice president, and I was a very active president, of course. And so we worked together for several years, and then ultimately I decided to make him president. I had an opportunity to do some public service at the state level in the governor's cabinet, and so I did that for 3 years and put Robert in charge of the company. We talked all the time, and I came back and forth, but that's when he first had the opportunity to just run everything. And that went so well. About a year after I got done with that, I came back, and then I had an opportunity at the federal level to go be on the TVA board. President Bush nominated me, and so that was 5 years. And so Robert ran it for 5 more. So by the time I got back, I was smart enough not to screw it up, just let him keep running it.
That's amazing. Okay. And so if you were to give advice to someone that is thinking about bringing in someone outside of the family, what would be your advice? And are there certain things that they should look for in that leader?
Obviously, competency and experience in the job or the industry generally and all that kind of thing. But more important than that, obviously, was an alignment of values. Our values were very much the same. His judgment was very much the same. I had plenty of people ask me, how are you letting somebody else just run your business and make all those decisions? And I tried to explain to them, we're really close and we communicate every day. And 9 times out of 10, we would make exactly the same decision in any situation. And the 1 time out of 10 that we wouldn't, he's right more often than I am. That was pretty easy. I felt super comfortable with him.
Okay, that's great. And talking with Wally and with Jack, they both have experience bringing in facilitators for those difficult conversations. Do you do any of that, or do you keep everything in-house?
No, I don't. And I'll confess to a built-in, not a prejudice, I don't know what you would say. I've never done that. I just always just sat down with the person straight on and figured, just like it is in marriage, anything else, if you got a good friend, you just need to look them in the eye and say it. And if you care about them enough and they care about you enough, it works out fine. But just be honest, be straight, I'm a big Duke guy, and Mike Krzyzewski was the coach over there for a long time. One of the things he always said was telling somebody the truth is a sign of respect. And if you don't tell them the truth, you don't respect them. And I respect Robert Anders a lot, and he respects me. And so we just tell each other the truth, and we're fine with that.
Oh, that's amazing. And so your son is involved in the company as well, correct?
Joe's been with us 13 years now.
Amazing. And so what does his succession planning look like?
It's pretty well laid out with a lot of specificity over a 5-year period of time. And that was discussed with Robert prior to presenting it to Joe. And then the three of us met, so we'd all hear the same thing at the same time. And to put it in some kind of perspective, I said, look, my plan is the first priority. Robert's plan is the second priority, and Joe's, yours is the third priority. So we're going to take care of my plan, and we're going to take care of Robert's plan, and then you get to have your plan. And by that, when are you going to retire? What do you want to do? That kind of thing. We're not hopscotch going over anybody. We're not changing things around. We're going to continue with what we've got, and it'll work itself out. So we've got a very specific plan. Joe was a salesman and a manager in Lexington, Kentucky. Then he ran the whole state, multiple stores, grew the market, then came back to Knoxville, and now is over 3 of our 5 regions and is learning all the way company-wide, all the responsibilities company-wide. And he and Robert work very closely together. Robert knows his timetable going forward, and Joe knows what that is, as do I. And so we're all on the same page. It's written out. We've all got copies of it. There's no misinterpretation of anything.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so a few questions around that. I guess my first comment is that's so great that he's worked his way up, because that builds that respect, right, from the other employees. So to get one level deeper here, how do you make those plans, like for yourself, for Robert, and for Joe?
First of all, you just look at your calendar and you look at your growth and what's going on and who needs to do what. And Robert has strengths in every area, and Joe has strengths in lots of areas and is developing more. But over some period of time, we need to make sure that Joe is ready to do those same things that Robert is doing, which means relationships. So really, it's a matter of taking the time to develop those key relationships with regional VPs and managers, even salesmen at the store level, because those are the key people that are going to continue to make you successful. And so we've identified all the people that are retiring in about the time that Robert's going to be retiring, and all the people that are going to be the next generation group that are going to be the people that Joe is counting on. And so his relationship with those people is critical, and it takes time to develop. And that's what we're working on. In addition, just to the organizational chart stuff, you're over sales or you're over operations or you're over finance or whatever, it's really a matter of relationships. So it's taking the time to go out there in the field and spend that time with them.
Okay, makes complete sense. And now I have another question from that. So you're putting people in the right seats already for once the people who are retiring the same time as Robert.
Correct.
My other question was going to be, who's filling Joe's role? Who's filling those other seats? So you guys have already planned that out.
Sure. It goes all the way down to the store manager level. We know when each manager plans to retire. We know who's going to take their place, or that we don't have anybody to take their place. We need to go find somebody. And so those timetables are in place. So that's really what succession planning is, getting a good notice from the person who wants to retire soon enough that you have time to plan for that, and then working with them to select that successor and groom them along. And we have store managers, then we have vice presidents over the regions, and then we have people at the company level like Robert and Joe who run all of that. Yeah, it works its way through in a ripple effect. We'll have one vice president retiring in that same time frame as Robert, and so obviously we're looking for, okay, who takes over that region? And that decision will be largely made by Joe, because that person's going to be working for him going forward. And so it just takes a little bit of planning, get it in the chute, and then take them on one at a time.
So during that whole plan, because that plan is with the entire organization pretty much. If it's 2 questions, one, was there any pushback of no, I don't think that person's the right fit, and how did you deal with that? I guess I'll start with that question.
Sure. Ultimately, Robert and or I have been making that decision, and now Joe is involved in those decisions as well. And we've had people recommended to us, hey, by a vice president, say, I think this could be the next store manager in Xville, and we don't see it. And so we have conversations around that and work it, et cetera. As we created new regions, we've had to come up with a new VP. So which manager in that region is the most qualified, not to just run a store, but to manage other managers? And who's qualified to do that? What are their pros and cons, strengths, weaknesses? Very open conversations, group conversations, and then ultimately it falls to us to make that decision. And that's been Robert and I. Now Joe's involved in those as well. It hasn't always been the first choice. Sometimes the first choice is the easy choice. There'll be somebody there. You can just not have to worry about it. Well, let's move that guy up. Maybe not. Let's think about that a minute. Is he really the guy you want for the future? And he's a great salesman, but is he a manager? Those are two different things. And yeah, sometimes we've rejected their first recommendation and gone on down the list.
Wow, that's great. And so when you've made that plan, you've decided who is going to be the successor, you go to that person and you say, hey, we have a plan for you and this is what it looks like?
Correct.
Is it a pretty detailed plan?
No, it's just an opportunity. It's basically they've been working in that store, they're working in a company somewhere, and they're familiar with the lay of the land. They know who's retiring, et cetera. And if you're a lead salesman in a store and the manager is retiring, you're either interested in that position or you're not, and that's good to know. So obviously we want to know if that person is interested in the opportunity, if they see that for themselves, and if it involves a relocation, how does that work for their family? And really gone way overboard about making sure that the person is comfortable relocating their family, and even if they've got 2 years to plan for it. And if they are, then great. It obviously depends on where they are in their families growing up and who's where in school and all that. But also it's a matter of them saying, yes, that's what I want to do, and knowing that it's okay to say, I don't think so. We love it here. We want to stay here. I want to grow this market. I'm happy here. And that's not disappointing to us. We always try to present it. Look, if this is where you want to stay until you're done, we're golden. That's good. This is an opportunity. So you tell us if you're interested, and then we'll put more meat on the bones as we go along. But it's a big family decision. It's not just a career decision.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I don't have a family yet, but yeah, that's why you work, is for your family,
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And what would be your advice to someone that's maybe at Holston and they're not part of the family, but they really want to grow at Holston, but they aren't being considered for those roles? What would be your advice to them?
First of all, be a superstar salesman or saleswoman, and then demonstrate your management abilities. And if you're given an opportunity at a store, show us what you can do. It's basically prove yourself along the way. And if you do that, you can look around at our VPs now, and there are people that did exactly that. There's nobody that's come into the company and just been knighted as a vice president. I guess we're a little selfish in a way where we say we want a Holston person. And what we mean by that is just someone who has our values and thinks like we do and sees things the way we do in terms of what comes first. And, that's the kind of person that we're looking for. And so just demonstrate it, show me, prove it. It's like the old maxim, if you want a promotion, start dressing for the promotion. Don't dress like the job you're in now, dress like for the job that you want to have. It's that simple, but you extrapolate that to everything else you do in terms of organization and professionalism and helping other people and training other people, and just demonstrate you can do it. There's going to be an opportunity. We've got openings coming up due to retirement. We're growing all the time. There's opportunity. So we are looking all the time for leaders.
Phenomenal answer. And what would be your advice to the current generation, like your generation that's in control / power now of the company?
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is know when to let go. And I'm speaking to myself as well as anybody else in my position. And that's a hard thing to do when it's been your baby for X years and all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. Even though it's your son or daughter, your number one thing is, please don't screw this up. I've worked so hard at it. You want them to succeed. That's like a dream come true for a family business owner, for the next generation to come in and be successful. And I know my dad would be proud of me. I'm proud of the way things have gone. But at the same time, the senior party has to know when to let go, how to let go, and that's not easy. I think having Robert has helped me with that, warmed me up for that, because I've been able to let go and let him do things, and he's demonstrated he's completely trustworthy. His judgment is great and all that. And so that helps. But you got to know when to let go. I mean, at some point, you got to let the next generation run it, right? And That's not easy, I guess.
It's so true. What is your fear around letting go? Or do you have a fear around that?
Not now, not today. I guess when I started
Okay.
out, the fear was, is Joe ready? Is he capable? Is he committed? Those kind of things. I knew he was capable. The more we worked together, and Joe's always been a sharp guy, and he's a sales oriented guy. He's got that kind of outward personality, those kind of things. He's smart. He's good with a computer, a lot better with a computer than me. Of course, that's just a generational thing. But so really, it's the commitment. We want to make sure that the commitment is there, I think. And then if they're competent and they're committed, it's going to be okay. It's just parenting. You have to let your kids make their own mistakes at some point, right? That's how they learn. You just hope they're not big mistakes and expensive mistakes. But mistakes, yeah, I sure as hell made my share. Thank goodness none of them were crazy bad. So live through them, learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like talking with Wally and Jack, their fear was, I want to stay relevant. This is my baby. I want to stay relevant. But talking with their kids, it's like they couldn't be more relevant now because if they
Yeah,
let go now while they're around, like you're able to go and pick the brain of your father or
right.
mother, whoever that is.
Yeah, that's probably
So
the shift. The shift is from active daily decision making to counselor and available resource. That's probably the main thing. For me, maybe I'm just lucky or whatever, but for several years I've been doing that with Robert, and I like it. I
yeah.
like not making those daily. Do a lot of other things with a big growing family, and I've got some other businesses now too, and they're just fun stuff, and so that's helped me.
That's great. And speaking of big growing family, do you have 4 kids?
Yeah, I got 4 kids and 8 grandkids.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. You're busy. Okay, so how is Joe the only one that's active in the business, or was there
Yes.
like decisions that had to be okay?
Yes, no, he was the one. I was fortunate in that regard. I think in some respects, it wasn't complicated by multiple kids wanting to be involved. There was just one. And I ended up with 4 businesses. And so it was easy to say, okay, Joe's going to be Holston, Liz is going to be this, Jen's going to be this, John's going to be that. And we had our big round table at the dining room table one year and got it all worked out and then wrote it all up and put it in motion. And that's the way it worked out.
Okay, amazing. That does make it a lot simpler, I would assume.
Yeah, it does.
um,
Everybody's got their own thing. Plus, they're not kids anymore. Liz and Jen are 42 and 40, and Joe and John are 39 and 37. So these are grown adults with their own families and kids and careers, and that's the way it ought to be.
so you said you had 4 kids and 4 businesses?
Just the way it worked out. I mean, Holston's the big one, and Holston's been the golden goose that's
Right.
created the opportunity for everything else. But I ended up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, bought a hotel and bought a honky tonk, and then we've got a bunch of real estate in the southeast and then a bunch of real estate in Wyoming. So that's the 4.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, and then what would be your advice to the next gen coming in?
Stick to your values, hire good people, spend time with them, show you care about them, not just as employees, but them and their families, and just be fair to everybody. And you'll be great. I mean, we've got, I don't know, 500 plus, 600 plus employees. And so that's a lot of families that are dependent on you. And that's what your decisions are about. And if you pick the right people and you earn their loyalty, they'll make good decisions for you. And that's why things go so well, and that's why you grow. Is you've got all these other people who know those markets better than you do, and should, because they live there and work there every day, making those good decisions. And it's based on the same value system, the same processes, and you have confidence in them. And so then you just take that 30,000 foot view and see things moving. And if you're happy with the direction they're going, you let people make those decisions. Easier said than done.
Yeah, but that's amazing advice. Okay, so did your father start Holston?
Yes. He and a
And
partner in
so,
1958.
okay, and what was the employee count when you took over Holston to what it is
Oh,
now? You
gosh.
said like you're around 500.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. I'd say maybe 30 people, 20, 25, 30 people.
That
There's
is
one, there's
amazing.
one store.
Wow. That is so cool. That's just unbelievable. I was talking with Abby and we were like talking about the percentage rate for the company to succeed, and every generation
Right.
it gets smaller and smaller. But I think when you have a good succession plan, or like you've done where you're just really open and structure it through the whole company, where the family member is going to go, it's where the employees
Right.
are going to go and how they
That's
see their
right.
growth. So that's definitely a good point to come to you for during that panel discussion.
Okay.
Um, are there any points you think we or that you want to hit on during the panel discussion, or any thoughts, ideas for me?
I guess for me, things are not always just neat and clean and perfectly organized and everything goes according to Hoyle, of course. You got to be flexible as you go along. You got to read the tea leaves as you go along. Something you thought was the right way to go last year, you may learn something different this year. You just always got to be constantly accepting that input and then adjusting to it. That's not to say that you ever abandon your core values and commitments to what the business is, but you do have to understand it's 2023. You know, it's not 1958, right? It's not the 1980s when I came in. Things do change, and you won't be successful if you don't adapt. So I don't mind a little dust flying. That doesn't bother me. That just goes with the growth of things. There's going to be, you're going to raise some dust. That's all right.
Yes, I think that's great. And that's what I'm struggling with is I don't want to host a panel discussion that's just, oh, everything's rainbow and butterflies. I would love to
Yeah.
get a little bit into the grits of that. Of no, it takes work, people disagree, emotions are
Yeah.
had, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's fairly common for the older generation to say, no, you're moving too fast. Slow down. You're moving too fast. We shouldn't do that yet. We're propane gas right now. I'll give you an example. Propane gas is 24% of our revenue. And we weren't in the propane business until 1976. And my dad's partner is the one who suggested it, went to some conference and came back all fired up. We need to get into propane. My dad was totally against it. Absolutely not. We're going to stick to the knitting. We sell oxygen and acetylene and welding torches. That's what we do. We're not in the propane business. Fortunately, his partner kept on pestering him until he finally agreed, and they went into propane in 1976. And now we're one of the top independent retailers in the country, and it's a huge part of what we do. It's hard to imagine Holston without propane right now, and I'm sure I've pushed back on things that we ended up. Robert finally convinced me, and or just wore me down, and went ahead and did them. They've turned out to be a great success.
Yeah, no, I think that's most businesses, right? It's like you look back, you're like, oh, thank God we did that.
Yeah,
Or I can't believe we
yeah,
didn't do that.
yeah. And it's okay to find out you're wrong and own that and be good with that and give the other guy kudos. And it's not okay to let the other guy go with it. It turns out to be a mistake, and then you rub his nose in it. That doesn't work either. So everybody's on the same team. That's what I feel so great about Holston. Everybody's interests are aligned. We're all pulling for the same thing. And if somebody screws up, then we all jump in there to help fix it and get it back on track or whatever. And it's okay if you screwed up for good purposes, with good intentions. So mistakes are okay. It's not something you want people holding back and not doing anything because they're afraid they might make a mistake. You never learn how to ride a bike that way, right?
Absolutely. And that's like you're saying, that's how good ideas come to the table. Otherwise, everyone's too afraid to share a new idea.
That's
And
right.
you just
That's
keep
right.
doing the same thing and then you no longer are relevant. I love that. Great. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
I think that's good.
Okay, great. Thank you again for all your time and your wisdom.
Thanks, Marie.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Have a great rest of your day.